This more than 600 years old magnificent Korean folk melody is called Arirang, and my 12 years old daughter Adrita happily obliged to play this especially for this episode on violin. She loves music and plays violin and piano. She is part of her school orchestra and also loves to sing. I'm so proud and happy that my daughter and I could come together for the first time for something like this, and her beautiful rendition has made this episode so very special for me. Hello. This is Shilpa and welcome to yet another story-filled, fact-filled episode of O Folk Season 2, where I am traveling down the centuries-old folk story lanes through different countries of Asia. And today, our destination is Korea. Hope everyone is doing good and staying fit. For me, well, it has been a very busy past few weeks and it still continues to be so, which is why this episode also took longer than usual to come live. I deeply apologize for this. Some personal things were going on and I had to pause for a bit to concentrate on those. But here I am, and I am very, very excited for this episode where we are going to know a little more about Korea through their culture stories and, of course, through a unique Korean folktale. The melody that my daughter played to start this episode is called Arirang, as I have already mentioned. Arirang is unique in so many ways. This ages back to more than 600 years and is extremely well known and sung in both North and South Korea. Arirang is in fact considered a symbol of unity between the two parts of Korea that stands divided by the Korean War. It is said that this song has roughly 60 different versions with almost 3,600 variations, although the refrain line of the song remains similar in all of them. Arirang has been included twice on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. While the exact meaning of the song still remains a mystery, some linguists think that in native Korean language, Ari means beautiful and Rang means a beloved one. So the two words combined, Arirang, probably means my beautiful beloved one. This is such a popular folk song that sometimes it is even considered as an unofficial anthem on both sides of Korea. And why is that? Because during the Japanese occupation of Korea, it was a crime to sing the actual Korean anthem or even any Korean patriotic songs. That's when people started singing Arirang during protests and even otherwise. In fact, many variations of the song contains themes of injustice, social inequality, and guerrilla warfare. This is in fact a reason it is also equally popular in Japan as well. It feels surreal that one folk song, so many centuries old, composer or lyricist unknown, has managed to survive so many ages, never lost charm, and in fact has become a social, cultural, and popular identity of a country. Korea, a country in East Asia, is a peninsular region. Since 1945, it has been divided between North Korea, officially known as Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and South Korea, or officially called Republic of Korea. So Korea as a whole consists of the Korean Peninsula, that is north and south of Korea, Jeju Island, and several other minor islands around the peninsula. The Korean Demilitarized Zone, or in short DMZ, is a strip of land that separates North Korea from South Korea. It roughly follows along the latitude 38th parallel north that used to be the original demarcation line between these two countries at the end of World War II. Today, DMZ is considered one of the most heavily armed border areas in the world. Korean Peninsula is bordered by China to the north and Russia to the northeast. In the southeast, it's separated from Japan by the Korea Strait. From 1910 to 1945, Korea was under Japanese rule, so a lot of Japanese influence is also visible in several aspects of Korean culture, like food and other cultural practices. Korean folk culture dates back several thousand years and is influenced by shamanism, Confucianism, Buddhism, and much later even by Christianity. Rural parts of Korea has played a significant role in developing and enhancing the Korean folk culture. Although many stories may have washed away with time, folklore still remains an integral part of Korean society and continues to influence Korean art, music and dance, rituals, traditions, and of course, Korean stories. According to a scholarly article titled "The Korean Folktale as a Narrative, Traditional Values, Changing Times, and Its Socio-Historical Development" by Dr. Lee Soong-yang, Korean scholars predominantly use 3 different terms for folktale, and they are mutually inclusive. Yetna Liagi, which are stories of the past, Mindam, stories of the people, and Solwa, stories that people convey for the sake of tradition. In spite of being so many centuries old tradition and having so many layers to it, it is interesting to note that Korean folktale is not very commonly discussed in Eastern or Western academic discussions. One key reason for it is lack of translation of Korean folktales. Therefore, compared to Chinese or Japanese folktale studies, Korean folktales have missed out in terms of reach and popularity. Function of Japanese colonization is considered as another key reason for the lack of Korean folktale scholarship, Professor Lee points out in her article. Between 1910 and 1945, during Japanese rule in Korea, they tried to eradicate, destroy, and wash off Korean culture in different ways. Korean folktales, being an integral part of the culture, inevitably fell victim to that as well. Not only the stories themselves were affected, but also any movement started during those years to revive Korean folktales were also forced to shut down. This had a significantly adverse effect on the survival and reach of the Korean folktales. Due to all these reasons, it is even more important to spread these stories today. And stories can be told in many ways, right? But in this podcast, I aim to spread them in one of the oldest storytelling methods of the world, oral storytelling. Korea, in fact, has a very fascinating style of oral storytelling tradition called pansori. Pansori has been declared a masterpiece of oral and intangible cultural heritage of humanity by UNESCO in 2003. This is a form of storytelling through music that originated in Southwest Korea in the 17th century, sometime between 1675 and 1720. This is predominantly performed by a solo vocalist and a barrel drummer. In the term pansori, pan stands for a place where many people gather, and sori means song in native Korean language. Originally, this was started as a mode of new expression of the shaman chants, but later evolved to depict popular Korean customs, traditions, and daily life. Main characteristics of pansori is expressive and dramatic singing style combined with stylized narration with extensive gestures. Performers may also carry a fan and a handkerchief as props. Due to the style of storytelling and on-spot improvisations, audience could also get involved in this storytelling performance. The performers of the stage art had to go through prolonged and strict training regime to develop and master the wide range of distinct vocal timbres and to memorize the complex long stories. Over the years, for various reasons, pansori tradition started fading out. But in 1964, after it was declared a national intangible cultural property within Korea, this traditional art form started getting support again and saw a new wave of revival. Like the tradition of pansori, today's folktale is also hundreds of years old. And is, of course, very fascinating. Among different genres of folktales, one of my personal favorite genre is the beginning of the universe kind of stories. Those which tells stories about how Earth was formed or the different elements of the Earth came into existence, stories like that. I absolutely love those stories for so many reasons. They have the most fun, adventurous, sometimes bizarre, but mind-blowing theories of how Earth was formed or why different natural phenomena happen, Especially the cultures that dates back many hundreds of years predominantly have more of such stories. And Korean culture being one of those is a treasure trove of such stories, of course. So, in today's episode of O Folk, we have one such captivating story all the way from ancient Korea. Today, I will be reading the story from an old collection of ancient Korean folktales titled The Story Bag, a collection of Korean folktales by Kim Soon, which is available on open access public archive platform called the Internet Archive. If you want, you can read this story and many more on this platform for free. It's raining outside right now as I record this episode, so the mood is perfectly set for story time. Without any more delay, I will dive right into the story while sipping on my freshly brewed cup of coffee. The story is titled Why We Have Earthquakes. This story goes back to the beginning of time. One corner of the floor of heaven began to sag. It seemed as if heaven itself would topple over and crash. The king of heaven became greatly alarmed and ordered a huge pillar of red copper to be made. What he wanted to do was to use this big pillar to bolster up the sagging corner of heaven. So, he had this pillar set up on the ground of earth below. But the ground was so soft and heaven so heavy that the whole pillar kept sinking into the earth and was of no use in holding up the sagging corner of heaven. The king of heaven then searched throughout all his land for the strongest man in his kingdom. Finally, he found a man who was enormously strong. He sent this man to earth and told him to hold the huge copper pillar up on his shoulder. Only in this way was the corner of heaven finally strengthened and the sagging corrected. And also, as long as the strong man held the pillar up, heaven was safe. But he could never take his shoulder away, lest heaven come crashing down. So, even unto this day, the strong man still supports the copper pillar. But of course, the pillar and heaven are pretty heavy, and the weight becomes painful on his shoulder. And so, every once in a while, the strong man must shift the weight from one shoulder to the other. Every time this happens, the ground quivers and quakes with the man's effort. That is why we have earthquakes. Stories like these exist in many cultures with either some variation or with absolutely some other theories. But in every form, I absolutely love them. These stories show how creative humans are and how fascinating imagination can be. Korea has a painful history of wars, prolonged colonization that finally led to the division of the country. While North Korea predominantly continues to stay isolated from the rest of the world, South Korea has made a significant global impact in the last few decades in the areas of technology, environmental initiatives, entertainment, food, and whatnot. This East Asian roaring tiger is now a global influencer. K-pop to Korean barbecue to kimchi, Samsung to Hyundai, Korean skincare to the Gangnam Style, from Train to Busan to Squid Game to Parasite. You name it, and South Korea is part of our lives in some way or the other. We know it or not. While South Korea's contributions to the world seems like endless, this episode, however, too has an end. It's almost time to wrap, and that's just for this episode. There's so much more stories and more countries to visit. So this journey of exploring the world through folktales is still very much on. And I want you to be my partner in this. Together, we will explore lesser-known stories from different nooks of the globe. And then, together, we will share it with the world. And in that, keep this chain of oral storytelling culture alive. So travel with me in this journey as you have been so far. Listen to Ofolk on any of your preferred pod platform. Ofolk is on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and so many other pod platforms. And please do share this podcast with everyone around you. If you have any feedback, feel free to share that with me through social media. Ofolk is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. In the next episode, we will travel to Bangladesh in South Asia. Until then, stay happy, healthy, and keep smiling. Love you all.